Hey everybody, how you doing? It's Saturday, so let's get to it. I want to say hello. I'm Charlie. I'm excited to talk to you. We got over almost 100 new people this week. The Patreon continues to grow. Our private chats continue to grow. That's awesome. The CBO book is almost ready. I snuck a sneak preview of the table of contents, but I've been playing a lot of fucking rock shows. So my apologies on not getting that out. My goal is to get that out by hopefully tomorrow. We'll see what happens. If not by tomorrow, definitely by next week, because I'm going on a cruise. So I'll miss 2 weeks with you guys. So I want to make sure you got all the shit that you can get. Hey, Oliver, how you doing? Or Olivier? Pete? All sorts of people. How you doing? Okay, cool. So a couple of things. One, while we're doing this thing, feel free to comment below, and I'll definitely answer all of your questions. We're going to go over this week's homework. And we're also going to cover a couple other topics this week. We're going to go over our topics for the week. Are definitely going to be first is exclusions and the world of CBO. We're also going to talk about this homework this week is going to be checking out the micro-influencer game and how you can take advantage of that shit. I dropped a video in the room a couple days ago, maybe it was just yesterday, but it's been a long day, about how I'm using the influencer game. Hey, Julia, how you doing? And then we're also going to get into some other really fun stuff, primarily just how to make sure that all of your campaign journeys are separated. And really what we're going to talk about there is testing in creative, one of the best ways of ramping things up. How do you make sure that you're measuring against the same yardstick, and what kind of expectations should you have when you do it? So again, we're going to be getting into the exclusions in the era of CBO, creative testing, and our homework's going to be on micro-influencers. So if you do your homework, you're going to get access to any of the ebooks. You can also go back to any of the other previous lives doing any of those homework, and you get access to the ebooks. Every homework gets another ebook, so if you do all the homework, you get all the ebooks. It's as simple as that, right? Otherwise, if you want to get it to it before, or you want to get more access to everything, please join the Patreon. There's a ton of good stuff in there. And if there's anything else you want, we do have the Slack, so take a look at that. Hey, it was nice to see you. So anyway, love you guys. Thank you very much. It's almost the end of the month. We're 3 months into the year already. That is fucking crazy. And also, at the end of the live, we're going to announce this week's entrant into the raffle, which will be, I think, the third or the fourth in this raffle. I don't know. I just got out of the gym and I had a show till way late last night, so forgive my lack of memory, but we're going to get to it. Hey, Mateo, how you doing? So anyway, drop a link to the Patreon in here. We got a bunch of new members. Please go make them feel welcome. Please make them feel at home. I'm loving all the questions and everything coming in. It's super great. And also remember, if there's not a topic of conversation we're covering here, just ask it. And if I can't answer the question, I'll link you up with somebody who can. Chris Moore, one of our group members, asked me for some help earlier this week, and I was like, you know what? I know there's a better person for it. Let me hook them up with the administrator of the ManyChat forums, and bot success is coming of that. They were texting back and forth each other. I was at the gym, just getting blown up because I was in the group chat. But that's a beautiful fucking thing. So anyway, any way that I can help you and anything that we can do together to make your shit better is what we're in here for. And hey, Andrew. Hey, Justin. Oh man, this thing's blowing up. So anyway, let's get into the homework for the week. Micro-influencer game. I'm going to do a little bit of a recap of what we went on before. I'm going to give some real-world examples. It's probably just going to be a lot of what we went in. So anyway, micro-influencers. It's a term that's being thrown around. Really what a micro-influencer is somebody with a smaller following. We see influencers of like 10,000, 50,000, 100,000, a million followers, right? On Facebook or Instagram or YouTube. Somebody that's smaller than that, that's just got a really curated little group of friends and maybe a little bit of a following, maybe a micro celebrity or something like that. Maybe they're a local personality, or they're a promoter, or they're like a model or a radio guy, or whatever it happens to be, right? Guys and girls up and down, anybody with a decent following, those people are what we call micro-influencers. And micro-influencers are really valuable because the relationships that they have with their followers are much more personal than somebody else. Hey, Chris, also, micro-influencers are fucking cheap. Most of them you can get for free. We're going to talk about that here in just a minute. So anyway, that's what a micro influencer is. And what I really want to talk to you about is as the influencer game is getting bigger, I see more and more stuff about, wow, Facebook influencers are just garbage nowadays. You got to move to Instagram. Let me tell you, Instagram influencers and Facebook influencers trickled off a year ago. If you're just catching up right now, absolutely Instagram is better than Facebook, but both of them are going to be paled in comparison to anything else you can be able to do. What you need is micro influencers at scale. So that's the number one way of doing it. Instead of spending $1,000 to try to get an influencer to promote something for you and run everything else, why not find a cheaper way to reach 1,000 people, right? Or 1,000 influencers. And so that's really what we're going to talk about. So getting into that game. Let me give you a very specific example of how I'm doing this for my band. It's not this. This is a great band, by the way. Plague Vendor. Awesome. Love them. I recommend the song Jezebel if you'd like to get in. Anyway, so micro-influencer game. How am I using this personally to address something? So let's get back to one thing. And my Instagram account for my band has the luxury of having 50,000 people and a check mark. So that's my unfair advantage in the marketplace. But you don't need that to take advantage of this game. You just need a decent product or a decent service. You need something that can provide value to other people, right? You need to find out, number one, how do I provide value to somebody? Number two, what is my unfair advantage in the marketplace, right? Like what makes me more legit, or what makes me stronger, or what makes me unique? What is the thing that separates me from every other motherfucker doing the exact same thing? Find that out, identify that, own that, make sure that that is your identity. Not only that, now you need to understand who is my target consumer. Well, you really got to get down into these what we call avatars of people or personas of people. Maybe I'll do something on that later. So yeah, if you understand, this is my identity. This is what I can bring that makes me unique. This is my unfair advantage in the marketplace. This is the value that I can bring. And this is the type of person I'm trying to reach. Hi, Chris. Hi, Sammy. So anyway, for me, for my band, I know my unfair advantage or my value. Let's start there. My value is that I've got a mountaintop of 50,000 followers, right? Over 50,000 real followers that I've curated over the years, right? So that's now my unfair advantage or the value that I can bring is that I can, one, I can have swipe up on organic content. Two, when I say things, it goes out to people internationally and to a very segmented and very focused target market. I also know who what my product is and what my identity is. It's a rock band, right? It's fun, heavy songs about drugs and fucking pinch of Satan for good measure, just good stuff, fun times. And then who's my target market? I know exactly who my target market is, right? It's people that enjoy rock and roll, and there's a lot of avatars that go with that, right? So anyway, so I know what my unfair advantage is. I know what the value I can bring to the marketplace is. I know what my identity is, and I know the kind of person I'm trying to reach. So that's the number one step. You got to identify those four things. Now, I know I'm talking really fast. Just replay this stuff. When somebody told me that I'd be great at speaking if I just slowed down, I said, fuck slowing down. I'm going to talk just the way I'm going to do. And that way I get across 2-3 times as much information as the next asshole. Plus, I don't have shit to sell. And I'm, hopped up on fucking caffeine. So now we've got that together. What do you do with it? So now what we need to do is find a way to make real meaningful relationships with people, right? So the way you make real meaningful relationships with people is you identify who's in your target market. So I know, for instance, for my band, and now mind you, I also do this for brands, I do this for companies, I do this for upstarts, drop shippers, lead gen, whatever else. The strategy works. I'm just giving a real world example for something that's not even selling anything, a band, right? All I need is eyeballs. And it's free for me. I'm Matthew. So anyway, that's why I'm using this example, because it's extraordinarily applicable to basically anybody, right? Hey. So what do I do next? Is I'm making an effort to give my 2 cents to a bunch of people. Gary Vaynerchuk has this thing called the $1.98 strategy. And something I've been doing for years, and he put it very eloquently, is that if you take the time to give your 2 cents to 99 people a day, that's essentially $1.98 a day of your time and money. Hi, Mia. If you're willing to do that, you're going to make personal relationships all the time. So what I do in mine is I'm finding people very specifically that I want to target. So I have identified 3 types of folks that I want to use for promotion for my band. Number 1, college radio DJs, right? Because college radio DJs are on the up and coming. They don't have a big audience. They're going to pay attention to you. They're stoked when you reach out to them, and they can reach out to hundreds or thousands of people on your behalf. Number 2, magazine writers and podcasters, essentially in the same market, but a different medium. Knowing that there's somebody trying to level up. They want to make personal relationships. They're always eager for more content. They're trying to do something meaningful, and they'll work hard to promote themselves. And number 3, for my band, because it's rock and roll, I'm also working with alternative models, mainly a bunch of suicide girls. Now, I'm not working on made suicide girls. I'm working on what they call suicide girl hopefuls. And suicide girl hopefuls are girls that have taken a couple modeling shoots, and if they get popular enough, if they get enough votes, they get a modeling contract. So these girls are, 1, on brand for the band. Number 2, very eager and savvy. And number 3, have audiences of hundreds or thousands of people. Almost all of them have at least 1,000 to 5 or 10,000 people. And they're very motivated to do promotion right now. Now, what is the other thing that these all have in common is that they have very personal relationships with their followers, and they pride themselves on their content, right? So now that is the batch of people that I'm trying to make personal relationships with. Now, so we're going to talk about micro-influencers, which is exactly what we're going to get to now. How do we turn those people into micro-influencers? How do we take advantage of those relationships to promote ourselves? So what I'm doing is I'm going out into them, and I've got kind of a canned response, right? So if it's the college radio person, I tell them like, hey, I did college radio from 18 to 23 years old. It was really meaningful. Thank you for doing the thing. I'm sure you're having a lot of fun. I really appreciate it. Keep up the great work. Right now, that's what that person sees. Oh, this band with a blue fucking check mark and 50,000 people is saying some nice thing, and they're doing it on a couple posts. They're following me. They liked a couple things, and they're making this like really personal. Like that is somebody saying their experience to me, right? Now, yes, it's canned response, but it's the same response I would have. It's my opening pitch I would have to anybody in that space because it's my fucking like elevator pitch. 10 seconds, in and out. This is what I'm going to say to get a reaction out of somebody right away. Now, if they respond positively to that, I'll say like, hey, keep up what you're doing. It's really, supporting your community and doing all of this stuff in the scene. It's all really, really good. And let me know if there's anything I can do to help. Right? So now this person's like, oh shit, maybe there's something I can get out of this. There's a mutual exchange, maybe some promotion or something. And I'm also got experience in the market. I've got a loud mountaintop to talk out of. So if they say yes, and I'll say, okay, let's do maybe like an interview. I can send you some music, or I can hook you up with some other people. And this way that you can get a fresh new batch of really high quality content and promote yourselves. And they can use me to promote themselves. Now, I can do the same thing with the podcasters, the same thing with the suicide girls, right? I mean, I don't have a history of being a fucking alternative model, but I do go back with a bunch of it. Anyway, the point is, whether that's photographers or whatever, the point is now I'm at a point where I'm going to send these people. Now, for me, it's really relatively easy because it's in a band. I can put, stickers or buttons or a CD or something in an envelope. For you, obviously, it might be a little bit different, right? But we'll get to another live example, and I hope that Nick doesn't get upset with me for using him as an example. Check out dadwear.com or dadwear and momwear. I think it's dadwear.us. Anyway, check it out. It's fucking awesome. If you want some help on Amazon, check out our group member, Nick Baker, and it'll definitely help you out. So anyway, sorry, there was a weird noise. Okay. Anyway, so now what we're doing is, because each envelope, to mail it out, cost me 50 cents, right? So now if I take some stuff that is a sunk cost into doing business, and it costs me 50 cents to send something to somebody, if that person can reach 1,000 people, now I'm paying 50 cent CPMs to make impressions on folks. And in exchange for getting really cheap CPMs, I'm also getting really high quality content that I can repurpose for myself. Now say that person has 10,000 people, right? Now I'm paying 5 cent CPMs. And no other platform and no other way of doing advertising, you're going to get 5 cent CPMs to a target audience that's interested in what the fuck you have to say. So now effectively, for the low price of $10 fucking dollars, I can make nearly 250,000 impressions. Now, if you got any other platform that's going to do that, let me know. And this isn't some like in the news feed, blah, 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 scrolling past the type of impression. This is very much a I know who this person is. I care about them. I've been following their show or their career or whatever else. And this person said something really whatever about this thing. Let me go check it out. And then in exchange for them promoting me for extraordinarily cheap, I also get super cheap, high quality content because that's what they do. They take care of themselves in that way. Like the radio guys or lady, like they take pride in their radio show and they're going to take pride in their image and they're going to take pride in their product. And so when they promote you, they're doing it in a way that isn't just some like, here, let's run this thing off so I can get something for free. They're doing something so that they can benefit from it because you are providing them the opportunity of promoting something new and interesting to their people. So you're giving them an opportunity to do a better job. And in exchange, you get super, super cheap impressions to advertise your product. Now, how does this work outside of a band situation? We'll go to this example of Nick, which is something he's on my bowling team. We were talking about it last week. He's got a company called Dadwear, which is products for new fathers. So what we talked about is how do we go about doing this? Now, he's got his unfair advantages and knows what his target market is and what his products are. So basically his thing is how does he reach expectant families, right? People with newborns or about to have newborns. Well, we were looking at it, it's like Lamaze classes, doulas, stuff like that, midwives. So if he can reach out to them and say like, hey, he just had a kid, having those in his life was really helpful for his family and he's really appreciative and keep up the great work, that kind of thing, right? That sales pitch. And then they respond, you can say like, hey, I'd love to show you what I'm doing. And if it's something that you think about and do you think is valuable, I'm definitely more than willing to send you one so that you can show your people because this is a great opportunity. He has a thing that's about kangaroo care, skin on skin contact. Lessons that he learned from them, and he basically made a product out of it. So now he can provide them with a product to show their people a way to make their relationship with their upcoming family member, their child, have a better relationship and bonding. So he's providing them an opportunity to provide a better service to their customers, right? And in exchange, maybe it costs them however much to ship it, but let's use really bullshit numbers. Say it costs him $50 to make the product and he sells it for $100. That's not his cost. That's not what he's selling it for, but for the purposes of easy money, of easy conversation. Let's say it's that. So then if he spends $50 to send something to somebody and this lady, say this doula or this midwife or the Lamaze class person has 10 people in their class. If one out of every other one of them makes one sale to somebody once, he's broken even. If any one of them sells 2 or 3 people in the class, he's definitely gone through. If he gets one person to potentially have somebody in the market sell 10, he spent $50 to make 1,000. That's a 20x return on a relationship made through Instagram commenting in DMs and shipping a fucking product from the post office. Now that's something that you can do right the fuck now that costs no ad dollars and is way cheaper than anything you're gonna be spending on Facebook ads or retargeting or whatever the fuck else you're doing. If this isn't a part of your ecosystem, it's something that I highly, highly fucking recommend. So in the interest of this being your homework for this week, what I'd love to see is for some of you guys to say, all I wanna know is to say, this is my unfair advantage. This is the value that I can bring, right? This is my identity as a brand, and this is my target market, and this is my first response. Those 5 things. If you send me those 5 things, you get anything from the Patreon for free, right? Anything you want, whether it's decks or ebooks or videos, anything that we got, it's on your way for free. Also, I hope you fucking crush it and let me know how it goes. It's great. Every week I get more and more people that are doing the fucking Patreon, doing the homework, and they're like, "Hey, what's the link for this? What's that?" It's funny. This week somebody said, "Hey, can you give me the link for that ebook?" And I was like, "Oh, are you in the Patreon?" He's like, "Oh no." I was like, "Okay, we'll do the homework." And it's like, I don't know where to find the homework. I said, "Okay, well, it's in the lives. Go to the lives, check it out, do the homework in there." And like within an hour, they were like, "Okay, look, I got this thing done. Send me the book." So all they wanted was the book, and in exchange, they actually upped the shit out of their game, and they responded back 2 days later saying, "Holy shit, this thing!" At this time, we were talking about the homework from 2 weeks ago, the retargeting, daily unique reach and impressions, and that market share. to level up the advertising spend, and they went from a 2.1 to like a 3 on their daily ad spend just because they were able to maximize against the highest quality targeting audience, and they were able to lower their prospecting budget and maximize the amount of people, the profit off of every individual that landed on their store, effectively raising the value of a click to their store, 50%, which is awesome, right? Each click was worth more, so they didn't have to spend nearly as much money on getting clicks, and way more, and they could spend way more time curating the relationships with the people already inside their ecosystem. So now, hopefully, what I'm hoping to see from this week is once they start to see the rolling profits from that, they'll be able to spend more inside the prospecting and scale their entire fucking business. That is a fucking win that makes me fucking proud. That's the thing. Hold on a second. Okay, yeah, that's the fucking thing that we're doing here, right? Like that's what this is all about. It is really kind of crushing that stuff. And a lot of people say, well, how do I scale my Facebook ads? You don't scale your Facebook ads. You scale your business by running advertising and relationships successfully. If you're doing the micro-influencer thing and you're doing this retargeting thing, the micro-influencer stuff might get you all the fucking traffic you need, and you can spend all your money trying to score micro-influencers and retargeting people to come to your site and then spending the rest of it on fucking groceries and rent. Because you're paying yourself, you don't have to spend, this massive amount of money trying to do prospecting inside of whatever else. It's another way of running your business, and it's something you should really consider. And if you're not looking at it in this fashion, as well as the impact of these efforts on your Google and your Amazon results, then I highly recommend you do. And if you need to track it, you should definitely look at the last ebook, the Scrum Doc, because it is the #1 way of tracking this performance, cross-channel, cross-platform, throughout the funnel, and seeing the impact of your efforts across your business bottom line. Awesome. Now, point #1 for the week. Point #1 for the week is we're going to do a deep dive into retargeting or into exclusions in the era of CBO. So let me give you an example first of how we used to do it. We used to say, every audience should exclude the other. You take your smallest audience and exclude it from the next size audience, and exclude that from your next size audience. So for instance, if you've got a 1% lookalike that's 2 million people, and a 5% lookalike that's 10, and an interest group that's 50 million, you would exclude your 1% from your 5, and you exclude the 1 and 5 from your interest group, which makes total fucking sense, because it would say that no one individual is in more than one audience, which is absolutely the right way to go. Now, in the era of CBO, we are going to be less concerned about the exclusions at the prospecting level. Somebody can be in more than one audience, and that's actually a good thing, because what you're looking for is for the CBO campaign to identify the cheapest way of reaching that person, because they might be identified in multiple ways. They might be in that interest group. They might be in that 5%. They might be in that 1%. Now, in that 1%, we know that we're going to reach that person and there's the highest quality. The issue is, because it's a smaller audience, you're going to pay a higher CPM. You're paying a premium because it's a more focused bandwidth. But that person might be in all 3. So the cost of reaching that person in the interest group might be half of the cost of reaching that person in the lookalike, but you're much more likely to reach them here because you have way less competition for that impression. Now, if you have, for whatever reason, a bunch of other advertisers marketing towards people and market rates and usage of the platform and whatever else, the cost of CPMs are dynamic across the board all the time. So in that case, while you might be able to reach a person for the cheapest tier most of the time, maybe that interest group is being targeted by a giant fucking, like maybe Tide is going after that mother, and so you're never going to be able to reach her that weekend because there's a big fucking sale going on. And the 5% might be, you kind of lost in the wash, but that 1%, that person, you're able to get them right away for the cheapest, most effectively, because the efficiency of targeting that person outweighs the efficiency of the wasted impressions to reach that person at the 5%. Now, I know that's a bit complicated, but what I'm trying to get to is in the era of CBO, Facebook is going to try to find the target users in any of your audiences that you have, whether it's 5 audiences or 40 audiences. Now, instead of excluding all of them and forcing CBO to find your customer in only one, if you give Facebook 10 ways or 5 ways or 40 ways of reaching that customer, it's going to find them at the cheapest way it can. So you're giving Facebook more opportunity to find your target customer for the lowest cost. And that's going to be the thing that's really making the best use of the way CBO campaigns work. So in the era of CBO, we are far less concerned about exclusions between ad sets within a CBO campaign. We're not nearly as concerned about excluding any prospecting effort from any other prospecting effort, unless we're doing testing. What we do need to make sure, and one of the things that I see all the time that we definitely need to cover, is even in CBO or in any campaign, you need to exclude all of your retargeting audiences from your prospecting audiences. Now, prospecting is first touch, right? So that's somebody hasn't been inside of your retargeting campaigns. So if your retargeting campaign is add to carts and website views, for the purpose of keeping it simple, say those are the two audiences that you're retargeting actively, then you need to make sure that you're excluding website views and add to carts from all of your prospecting efforts. Because while we don't need to exclude users from ad set to ad set inside of a CPO, we do still need to exclude users from multiple parts in the funnel. Every user, if you draw your funnel like this, every user should only be either up here, in here, or down here. No one should be eligible to be in multiple places at once. And this is because the value of that customer, their level of intent, knowledge, and the amount of money that you've invested on trying to reach that person increases as they go down the funnel. A person inside your retargeting audience is somebody that you've already paid to reach. You've already paid to reach them either in prospecting or through some other methodology. So they've come to your store, maybe they've added to cart or they viewed content or initiate checkout, whatever one of those things. So that person, you've already invested money on them, and they're also much more likely to convert sooner, or they're much more likely to convert than somebody else. So one of the things that we need to do here is know that when you exclude your retargeting from your prospecting, it will make your prospecting less effective, which is fine. You don't want your prospecting to reach people that have already entered into your ecosystem. So if you're retargeting, say, let's just use a simple thing, add to cart 7-day. Let's just go with that audience. If you're retargeting add to cart 7-day, but you haven't excluded it from your prospecting efforts, then somebody might be reached in this CBO and this CBO and this CBO, and on this one they added a cart. Well, now Facebook sees that person as a high quality user. So it's going to try to reach them in all of your CBOs, because it's like, hey, this person's going to try, is definitely on, the path to making conversion. That's a much higher quality person. Let's spend money on it. You might have spent money to, one, get that person to click to your site, and then you're trying to reach them 3 more times from 3 different places. You could effectively triple your cost in getting that person into your ecosystem again and again and again. That is why you have to exclude them, because instead of tripling your cost, you can pool them with other folks that are at that same level of intent, and then you're just targeting them with something that's very focused. And what I can tell you is when you retarget just those people, your returns are going to be much, much higher. That's where, maybe your prospecting comes in at a 1x or 1.2, but your retargeting can come in at a 1.5 or a 2 or a 3 or a 5. It can come way higher. And then when you look at your overall campaign, you're not looking, or your overall account, you're not looking at campaign by campaign. You're not saying, oh, well, this CBO is tanking, I can't make money here. It's what's the effect of your prospecting on your retargeting and your net total at the end of the day. The number one way of raising the return on your ad spend is to increase the budget the further down the funnel. The more money you can spend on a high quality user in retargeting, the less money you need to spend in prospecting. And if the retargeting is getting you a 2x and you spend half your money there, and you spend half your money in prospecting at a 1x, your entire campaign comes to 1.5. Now that means that your prospecting campaign might fail for 3 or 4 days, might be god awful. But because you're getting people inside your retargeting, you're still above average. Say you need a 1.3 to stay in business. And on an average day, you're getting 2x in your retargeting and a 1x on your prospecting. That's a 1.5. Now, if 3-4 days in a row, maybe you have a really bad weekend on your prospecting and all your campaigns drop to shit, your retargeting still is getting you a 2, which means you're still hovering right around where you need to be. And maybe if you have a few good days, you can afford a couple 1.2 days because you're at the end of the month still over 1.3. You need to be evaluating your campaigns, your account, not campaign by campaign, but funnel by funnel. And that's what the Scrum Doc is really helpful for, and I definitely recommend it. And why we need to exclude retargeting audiences from your prospecting. Because when somebody's in your ecosystem, that's the person you want to spend the majority of your time and effort to reach. Prospecting is little more than a break-even traffic campaign to drive up the volume of your retargeting. And anywhere you can spend money on retargeting above your company goal is a dollar better spent there than on any dollar you're going to spend getting people into the ecosystem. And the number one problem you want to have is, I can't spend more in retargeting. I've maximized my spend. I can't spend in full every single day. I'm just hitting a wall. There's literally nobody else to retarget. That is when you increase your prospecting spend. And then you feed more people into the funnel. And you use your profits from your retargeting to fund that, right? Or to fund the mailers that are going out for 50 cents so you can get 10,000 impressions. So yeah, and we want to make sure that you don't constantly shift the exclusions that you're using inside of CBOs, because one of the things, and we covered this last week, but one of the 3 worst practices is modifying the targeting inside of an existing ad set within CBO. So I would say, know what is the highest level that you're ever going to really retarget. Maybe it's website viewers from the last 7 days. Now that a website view over the last 7 days includes all your view contents, all your add to carts, initiate checkouts, payment add, all that stuff. You can't do any of that unless you've been to the website. So if somebody's been to your website in the last 7 days, exclude that audience, just your what's called a WCA, website custom audience, exclude that from all of your prospecting. And then it's one audience that you can apply as an exclusion in the custom audience section. So where you include your lookalikes, below that you can do an exclusion. In there, you exclude the highest level of your retargeting because it will include everybody below that. It's absolutely the simplest way of doing it. And the simplest way is the way that has the least amount of opportunity for error, has the least amount of need to modify or improve, and is the number one way of maintaining stability, because it's really easy to see what's wrong when you have one exclusion versus 20 and like, oh, well, this one's 19, this one's 18, I don't remember which one was which and all this other stuff. And if you start modifying that shit, you're going to fuck up the CBO campaign because you're telling it to do its math differently. They're not stable enough yet. And that's one of the things we know is that sadly right now, CBOs aren't stable enough to handle the day-to-day optimizations that an ad set used to be able to take care of. In exchange, the CBO campaigns are providing you as much stability as possible across all of your ad sets. And yes, you're going to have good days and bad days, and you're going to have the breakdown issue, which I'm covering in the ebook. But your number one goal is that you get a stable CPA or a stable spend level in your CBO campaigns. One of those two objectives. That is the part of the math equation that you need to make sure your retargeting is maximized on a daily basis. You can ask me a question. What's up, babe?
Don wants to know if we want to take the other side of the garage, and I haven't answered yet because I don't know if we want the section off garage for rock and roll purposes.
It's up to you, hon. I don't care.
Can we rock and roll in a double garage?
We can rock and roll in a double garage.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
I'm going to get back to this. Okay. Hey, you want to be on camera?
No.
No? Okay. Well, let's take the double. That's fine with me.
All
right. No problem, babe. Okay. Let's see. let's get to some questions because I got totally derailed there, and I think I was on way down the rabbit hole. Matthew says, so multiple CBOs for different stage of funnel and exclude the below funnel. Matthew, that's absolutely one way you can do it. I personally, absolutely. The main thing is you want to exclude each level of the funnel from the previous one. So you can have prospecting CBOs, retargeting CPOs, retention CPOs, or CBOs. I say CPO. The one thing that I would say is something to take some concern with is that right now CBOs aren't fully optimized for DPA campaigns. It's something that I've been seeing more and more. I've been talking with folks inside of Facebook about, and so it's not quite there yet. But definitely use CBOs where you can. The other thing is if you use a CBO inside of a retargeting campaign, which is something that I'll get into the book, so I'm just going to cover it briefly here, is that you will have less control of where the money goes. Now, I do have hacks for that, and we're going to get into that in detail. But for right now, I would try to avoid using CBOs inside of your retargeting. The solution is something way more complex than I can get into here. So for the purposes right now, if you're watching this and you're not using CBO and retargeting, don't worry about it. We're going to have an ebook on that that'll cover it. And if you are using it, that's totally fucking fine. And if it's working for you, fucking awesome. And just make sure to exclude your retargeting from your prospecting. So find the biggest audience in your retargeting and exclude it from your prospecting campaigns. Let's see. Matthew also asked, do we need to exclude the audience who engaged with our ads? Matthew, this is a great question. And you only need to exclude them if that's a retargeting audience. Now, me personally, I've seen many people have great success retargeting people that have engaged with their posts. So you guys don't know, inside the custom audience section, there is a Facebook business and Instagram business section. And you can go in and you can make a custom audience of people who have liked, commented, or shared any of your content. Now, a really quality audience to target is somebody that has engaged with your content in the last 24 hours, because that person has seen content from you, which means they're engaged. Now, if they've seen that content from you, but they haven't been to your website, that's a great audience to go after. And if you do retarget them, we can look at the retargeting ebook has the ladder basically, or the rungs of each bit of retargeting. But to recap it here very briefly, you've got your engagers, and then you got your you got video viewers at the very top. Very low quality retargeting audience. I would actually say that's a really solid prospecting audience, but that's me. So video viewers, and then you've got your engagers, and then you got your site traffic, and then you've got your view content, add to carts, initiate checkout, and payment ad at the very bottom. That's the very, very bottom. So just whatever level you're retargeting, make sure that you're excluding that person from everything else. Now, make sure you're also keeping your windows together. So a Facebook engager is a different type of person than your website traffic. So in this case, I would say you're retargeting Facebook engagers from the last 24 hours and site traffic from the last 7 days. Exclude both of those audiences because they're different types of people. You can engage with a Facebook post and never go to the website, but you can never add to cart without going to the website. So if that makes sense. And it's all inside the retargeting ebook, which is on the Patreon. And if you do this week's homework, I'll give it to you for free, or last week's homework, or the week before that. So great question. But if you're retargeting that audience, exclude it from your prospecting as a golden rule. Anything inside of your retargeting is excluded from everything inside of your prospecting. Sammy asks, is Facebook removing the relevance score? Sammy, yes, they are. Actually, they have an updated version of the relevance score. But in general, the relevance score, especially in this new era of CBO and the focus on video and community, is an extraordinarily lower value metric than it used to be. And for advertisers, you don't really need to be worrying about your relevance score nearly as much as you need to be worrying about profit margins, and CPMs. Now, your relevance score might help you determine whether a piece of creative is the one driving up your CPMs. But in CBO, Facebook is just going to try to find the best person no matter what. So it's going to basically do that optimization for you. So it becomes something that's just inside the machine. You don't need to worry about it anymore. It's like a self-cleaning oven or something. That's a horrible example. But the point is, you don't nearly need to worry about the relevance scores you used to. Mateo asked, do you stack different lookalikes in the same ad set? For instance, lookalike percent engagement, your content's at the cards. Mateo, sometimes. I'm a big proponent of, well, actually, I'm building this strategy called bucket-based CBO, which is being talked about inside the Facebook, group, and project managers and reps or whatever. It's going to be really fun. I'm excited to see what the next 6 months talk about. We might be hearing a lot more about it soon. Anyway, if I am, and actually this is something that was super in-depth inside of the Slack channel, so if you're not in there, it's a great way to get this with thinking from a bunch of other people. Now, I will stack them, especially if I'm trying to determine which bucket to go down, or if I could say that audience is essentially my 1% lookalikes. So if my bucket, for my bucket-based CBO, is a lookalike audience, right? If I'm going after a strategic bucket, now I'm saying this audience type that I'm looking for is my lookalikes. I could say that I'm going to have a 1% lookalike, a 2%, a 3%, 4, 5, whatever. And those are all my different ad sets within my CBO campaign. And then maybe duplicate them and later on engage shoppers. And then if I've got 1 through 5, that's 5 different audiences, each one being, maybe 3 or 4 different lookalikes. But, your engagers, your contents, add to carts, purchasers, those 4 lookalikes at 1%, 2%, 3%, 4, and 5. And then I duplicate them and layer on engage shoppers, which we've talked about before too. Now I've got 10 audiences inside of my CBO campaign. The broader audiences without engaged shoppers on them are going to be lower CPMs. The ones with engaged shoppers on them is going to have a higher CPM, but have a much higher quality customer inside because those are people that are likely to respond to Facebook ads to make a conversion. So anyway, in that case, I would definitely stack my lookalikes because I'm not really concerned about which lookalike audience is the best for me. I know that I want to go after lookalikes because they work. So it's which level of lookalike audience is the thing I'm looking at. So 1% versus the 5, right? And so if that's the strategy that I'm trying to maximize, there's no problem in stacking those lookalike audiences together. None at all, but make sure that it makes sense inside of the theme or the strategy for that CBO campaign. Remember, all CBO campaigns should be built around a strategy, whether it's a concept for creative or a target audience or a certain test you're trying to function. Each CBO has a different business reason to exist. If it doesn't, then it shouldn't exist. You shouldn't use it, combine it with something else. You're probably spreading your money too thin. It's better to spend as much as you can in as few amount of places as you can. So that you centralize your learnings, you get faster, you hit stability sooner, and you can scale. So that all being said, let's get into the next piece. All right, what, 43 minutes already? Man, that's awesome. Let's see, we're getting comments? No, okay. I think I just accidentally took a screenshot. We were going to talk about the second thing was creative and how to test. So there's plenty of different ways to do this, and I'll tell you, in all my years of doing it, there's not actually a handbook or a manual or a best practices guide that works for every advertiser to test creative. I have pushed every platform and every rep and every business and every client and every agency that I've ever worked with or in or for, and not a single one has the same strategy. So we're fucked, right? We're not fucked. You're welcome, Mateo. Let me tell you something that we all have, that they all have in common. And you can then take that to try to find the best method for you. Number 1, your creative testing needs to answer a binary question. this or that, right? Does this work or does this not work? Or is this one better or is this one better, right? That's it. Does it work or does it not work? Does this one work better or does this one work better? You can only answer one question with each test. Number two, you're testing, if you're testing to see which creative, if you're trying to answer a question and your creative is different, then your audiences should always be the same. Now, whether that is targeting against your favorite lookalike or targeting against broad audiences, which is just, age and gender, or targeting against people that have added to cart in the last 24 hours. Whatever your audience for testing is, make sure that if you're testing different creative, that you're testing it always against the same audience. That way you can tell when you're comparing results of creative against each other for multiple tests, you can always compare the results. And then it's not like, well, this one did great, but it was against women, and this one did great because it was against moms, and this one did great because it was against guys that really liked horses, right? Whatever it is. I don't know why I went with guys who like horses, but anyway, there you go. If your test is not multiple pieces of creative, but one creative, and trying to see where it works best, then you want to run that one creative against different types of audiences, right? And there you can have a question that where you're saying your answer is very much, you're going to get the yes or no, but your yes or no is going to happen. Does it work for this audience? Yes or no. This audience, yes or no. This audience, yes or no. This audience, yes or no. Or this audience, yes or no. You're not going to say which audience does it work best against. Each audience you're showing that creative to is a binary yes or no answer. That's it. If you cannot answer, well, what about this one, and then have a couple other things. Now, what you can do is when you're running multiple tests, or after you run multiple tests, you can see what things have in common. Absolutely, you can do trend analysis across multiple pieces of creative. That is something you should be doing. Like every creative that has this thing seems to win the test, or every creative against this audience seems to, whatever. Those types of things, 100% completely valid. So let's give an example of a creative test here. But I want to drive that home one more time. Every test can only answer one question. It's a yes or no answer, or this or that, right? That's it. And if you're testing multiple pieces of creative, test them all against the same fucking audience. I can't stress that enough. Against the same fucking audience. Or if you're testing one piece of creative, test it against multiple audiences, but you're not going to see which audience does better than another one. You're just seeing, does this audience work, yes or no? And the more audiences you test against, the longer your test will have to run, and the more money you're going to have to spend. Okay, so let's do an example of a way of doing a creative test. Say I've got two videos, right? I've got two video ideas, right? Sometimes this is referred to as a concept or an idea or a strategy, right? There's a bunch of different buzzwords for it. Let's go with concept for this time. So say you've got two video concepts. One is a video of somebody using your product, and another video is somebody talking about how much they enjoy it, right? So it's a use case and then like an experience. Two very decent ideas. And you want to test these creatives. What you're doing here is now you're going to ask yourself, what is the question I want to answer? So in this case, I would want to say, do these creatives work? And I say that because this is actually two different tests. They're not comparing this creative against this creative. You're not seeing which one does better. You're going to see, does creative A work? Yes or no? Does creative B work? Yes or no? At no point are you going to compare this creative versus this creative. Which one should you go with? That is an invalid test. So that's why I'm giving this example. So you've got your two creatives, right? Your two concepts, right? Now, I recommend having a couple versions of each, because maybe the edit on one is better than the edit on the other, or the format or something. If you've got 3 versions and one's a home run, but you only launched with 2 of them and they weren't the good one, then you say, well, this thing's garbage, and you throw it out. It's best to run with 2 or 3 versions, right? So anyway, we've got our 2 creatives. Maybe each one has 3 versions for this example. So now, because you have 2 pieces of creative and you want to evaluate them, you're going to run them against the same audience. And you don't, if the audience is large, you don't need to exclude them from each other. That's fine. Say it's a lookalike of, site traffic from the last 30 days. Not an audience I would necessarily target, but for the purpose of this conversation, let's just go with that. Or actually, let's go with something Matthew said. Let's go with ad engagers. So people that have responded to your content, let's say that audience is of the last 6 months. So it's a post or ad engager of the last 180 days. That's your testing audience. People you already know respond to your content. Do they like this? Will it make them click? How does this creative respond to them? So now your testing audience is defined. Your yardstick will always be Facebook or Instagram, post or ad engagers, I think is the name of the audience, over the last 180 days. So you launch this creative and this creative against that audience. And then you run it. And you see, after 5x times your CPA, say your cost of making your target cost to make a sale is $10. When it spends 50, is it doing okay? When it spends 100, is it doing okay? And in this period of time, if you've got multiple edits or multiple versions, when any one of them crosses at 5 to 10 times your budget, or 5 to 10 times your target cost per sale, and it doesn't work, turn that one off. Don't turn off the whole test, turn off that one iteration. And then that'll scale up the spend to the other 2. And hopefully what you'll end up having at the end of the day is 1 or 2 versions of creative that work against your testing audience, which is great, or something that fails outright, which is great because that's not a path you want to go down. So now you've got a piece of creative. Let's say this one kind of failed against all the audiences, but this one's still working. And you have one of those creatives failed, but 2 of them are working against this target audience. And working might mean for you that it's making a 1.2x return on ad spend. Fantastic. You're making money during your testing. That's a goal. That's something that's wonderful. So now you know that this creative, you've identified out of it that yes, it works. In the trend analysis and optimization, you've seen one of the versions doesn't work because you've been optimizing out because of the spend level, but the other 2 do work. And they've been working for a while and they're stable and you've been able to spend against them for days and days and days, and they're still above goal. Right now they made it past the 5x, maybe they spent 10 or 20 times your target CPA and they're still profitable. Great. Or whatever the goal is. Maybe the goal is 3x, maybe the goal is 0.5, whatever it is. So now you've got that piece of content that's working for you. And hopefully while you're doing all of this, so now it's a piece of content that's good. So then you want to take that content, and that is where you can build a CBO around it, or you can drop it into your existing campaigns. There's a lot of other things, depending on whatever your business objective is there. But that is a creative test that has proven out multiple winners, and you've gotten yes or no answers. And then when you run other creatives, you can compare those creative results against this one, right? Against this one. So if you got 3 or 4 more other ones, this is what I can expect against this audience because you set a benchmark. I need everything else to perform as good as this one, or I'm not going to run it. So then your question is, does this new creative perform better than the winner? If the answer is no, maybe don't run it. If the answer is yes, maybe you should. Also, what I would say is, while you're running these tests, I wouldn't really try to mess around too much with the posts themselves. But always, when you're running an ad, go in and delete bad comments. Reply back to positive ones. This is just a best practice you should be running across everything. Either way, That is how you can do some creative testing to establish winners and losers. And you need to know that if you win 20% of the time, that's awesome. You're gonna lose far more often than you're gonna win. And the goal is you find winners that are long-lasting winners. And they stay in. Maybe they stay in for a month, maybe they stay in for 9 months. But you always want to be testing to find out what's the next thing that's working so that you can load it into whatever your strategy is from there. We all have different implementation strategies after we do creative testing, and we can get into that another time. The point here is, how do you test creatives? So to recap, the creatives are being tested at a yes or no point, right? Does this work? Yes or no? That's it. Or does it work against this audience? Yes or no? That's it. Now, when you run that, you're going to have multiple versions of that creative in there. So that it's not just, does this one work? It's, does this idea work? Does this concept, does this strategy, does this, whatever you want to call it, does this campaign, whatever you want to say. But does this idea work? And maybe one of the versions of that idea doesn't, but 2 of them do, or 1 of them does. Great. And now you've established, is that better or worse than my testing benchmark? If I know that for a test to be successful, it needs to come in at a 0.8 or a 1.5 or whatever it is for you, or a $9 CPA or a $50 CPA, whatever it is, does it do better or worse than that? That is how you can evaluate your creatives to get into testing. And one thing I would say is, you must always be testing at least 1 creative. Now, I know a lot of people are saying, well, I don't have the budget for that. How do I do it? What I would say is, take 10% of your prospecting spend and run that in your testing budget. That's a very big industry standard, 10 to 20%. Very common. That's the standard, whether it's in television or in print ads or billboards or Facebook. 10% is the benchmark for how much you should spend in testing. Now, what does that mean for your overall performance? It means that you're going to need to level up your performance or be willing to take that hit. But if you implement the stuff we've been talking about for retention to increase the lifetime value, or the things we've been talking about for retargeting so you can increase your spend against good audiences, hopefully that means you can throw in this extra 10% of your budget to start to test some creatives. Because at the end of the day, Facebook is a creative first platform. Creative is what moves the needle more than anything else. So you need to make sure that you're constantly testing creatives so that you've got the best thing all the time. And when something starts to fade, remember that it's not your campaign that's failing. Most often, it's the creative. The creative has stopped working, right? Maybe it's got saturation, or the marketing pitch doesn't work, or whatever is going on. So you have to be testing creative to always have the next man up ready to go. Or you're like, oh, we've got 1 ad, it's working great. Well, what happened if you had 3 ads that were working great? Or if each ad had an entire campaign built around it, and then you can diversify your ad spend. Instead of spending 300 in one place, you can spend 103. And then because you're spending less there, you get lower CPMs, and you're also going after the lowest hanging fruit in multiple different places. And you're targeting different customers with that because different people are going to respond to those creatives differently. So now you're more stable and you can scale in multiple places, and you're less open to the volatility of any one audience. That's a whole other thing. That's probably more valuable than the last 20 minutes. But the point is, that's how you need to be thinking about this stuff. If you can think about it like that, you're going to stay ahead of the curve all the time. We got a couple more questions here, and then we're going to get into the Patreon winner for this week. Anyway, let's see what we got. I should probably just do it on the damn laptop here. I don't know why I'm doing it this way. Okay, Sammy asked, does Facebook make a difference between the lookalikes built in and the lookalikes imported and built from emails? Great question, Sammy. It doesn't. Any lookalike that you make, there's no preferential treatment, whether it comes off of a pixel or what we call a CRM list, or like an email list or a previous buyers list or whatever it is from your website. There's no difference. The advantage of using a lookalike is that that audience is not going to be targeted directly by any other advertiser. And it's built around a very specific action that you want to find other people to take, right? So if you're trying to find more add to carts, making a lookalike of an add to cart makes a bunch of sense. If you're trying to find more buyers, finding a lookalike of people that viewed your video doesn't make a lot of sense, right? But all of those are probably going to be better than people interested in ketchup because you're selling something having to do with hot dogs. Now, there's no wrong in that. And if you're doing a giant bucket-based campaign around a customer persona, 100% go for it. But there's no difference in an LAL, a lookalike, built around pixel data or anything else that you upload into Facebook. What I would say is make sure that your data set, if you're uploading it into Facebook, is all built around one thing. If you're selling 5 different products, you can say, here's all my buyers, but it might also make sense to say, here's all my buyers of product 1, product 2, product 3, product 4, product 5. And that way, you've got multiple types of lookalikes, so you can find multiple types of buyers, and you can target product 5 lookalike ads to people that look like the buyers of product 5. Yeah, so there you go. Let's see, budget allocation for testing, prospecting, retargeting. You can, the budget allocation for prospecting, retargeting, I've gone into that inside of the funnel ebook. I think that's a much better place to look at it. This is definitely a business decision. I've seen people make success on 50-50 splits between prospecting and retargeting. I've seen 80% prospecting, 20% retargeting. It's very much a business decision. What I would say is your testing is roughly, the industry standard is 10% of your prospecting budget. But what I would say is start building a Scrum doc, look at what you need to do to get to your end goal, and try to maximize your spend in that way. If you know retargeting is getting you a 2x and prospecting getting you a 1, and you need to get to a 1.5 as a business, then you need to spend at least 50% of your money on retargeting. If it's only a 1.3, then you can spend 30% of your money on retargeting because the math works out, right? So that's kind of the way you need to be looking at this stuff. Anyway, I hope you all have a great weekend. I want to thank you all for coming on board. This has been a really good one. I've had a lot of fun. I hope you have too. We're going into the Patreon here just to make sure that we get everybody involved, and we announce this week's winner because I have it on the thing here. I just need to take notes. I've been going to the gym before coming onto here, and so less organized than I may used to be. I just moved, so I'm kind of, a little all over the place. Anyway, let's get to it. So this week's winner for the raffle entrant is, let's see. Oh, wait, I had it here. Is Jules Duncan. So thank you very much, Jules. I'll tag you in this thing, and we'll go on from there. I'm going to send you a message too on the Patreon. So, hey, check this week's live. You are a raffle entrant winner. I think this might be Jules' second time. So congratulations to Jules. Anyway, that is the end of it here. I'm going to go take a shower and then head down to go do life. So hope it's been fun. Thank you very much. And I'll see you guys. Well, no, next week and the week after, I'm actually on a cruise. So I'm going to get the ebook in, and maybe we have to take a week off. But I'll see what I can do to maximize the fuck out of this value. And you have more time to do the homework. So knock that shit out. I'll see you then. And if this really means a lot to you, like I say every week, please like it and share the video and invite one friend to the group. It'd mean the world to me. All right, thanks. Bye.